Okay, so real quick, you you and I talked a couple years ago.
Yeah, probably some years ago. I think we may have talked again after about 2 years
That's right. You
for
know,
like
you've
one
always kind of
session.
been a little anorexic, orthorexic, obsessive, really just obsessive compulsive about perfecting your food intake, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, this isn't new, and so you've kind of struggled with it, and then you kind of got freedom from it, but then you went back into. I loved your email. I'm not saying your email was great and positive, but you were. It's like I want to publish your email in my book. Like this is what a typical email I get from someone who's suffering with kind of orthorexia and anorexia, but and the downside of this whole industry or health industry that micromanages food in fear,
Yeah,
right? In fear.
totally.
Anyway, so you're stuck. You're kind of where are you at right now? Because I want to make sure with the time we have together, it's very efficient. I don't want to waste any time.
So now I'm just back into like kind of, I guess it would just be binging. I guess it's hard to relate it to binging because of what I'm used to, but it's still binging. I think it's probably
Okay,
wrong for myself. I'm telling
let
myself
me
or
just
anyone I stop.
clarify. Let me clarify just the essence of what you're calling a binge. Um, you're saying basically you're feeling like screw it, I'm done. Like
Yeah,
when you're binging, you're in a state of like panic. I assume you're starting it with I have to be perfect, I need to micromanage, I can't eat this or that, and then you're like have a bite. That one bite turns into a binge.
kind of. I guess the past couple weeks after I kind of
Hey.
found you again and
Sorry, my dog
I'm
is
out
growling.
of, oh, that's okay. I stepped out of any food restrictions. This has been a couple weeks now. When I realized I was kind of involved in medical medium and the whole, I don't know, eat fruits and vegetables to heal your life, all that kind of bullshit. So in the last couple weeks, I've like completely let go of any food restriction, even having celiac. Like I'm even eating gluten, dairy. I'm eating everything.
Yes,
Allowing myself
that's
everything.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Are you still over consuming?
totally. Over
Do you see
consuming.
that would be understandable considering how restricted you've been, how restrictive you've been?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, can you probably feel a little primitive, you know, like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an animal recovering from
Mhm.
starvation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So is
But
there
it's still
anything
over.
really wrong with that? Considering the
No.
picture, like what, yeah, when you think about it, you're like, oh, yeah, of course. The overconsumption is going to be, that's going to occur.
Yeah.
For anybody in that situation. It's not a personal lack of control or, let's have some compassion here, right?
Yeah. True.
How restrictive have you been? If you were to give, let's just say someone's listening to this who's in that old state of perfectionism, and if I eat that, I'm going to I'm going to have candida, all that fear mongering that's occurring right now. It's been occurring over
Mhm.
the course of the last, I think, 10 years, really, with this huge push in food is health and nutrition, that.
Right. I
To
was
an
at the
extreme, right? To an
max.
extreme. We
I
could say
was.
there's certain parts of it that are like, of course, you need vitamin C or you're going to get scurvy. Of
Right.
course. Right? But it's to a radical, it's like radicalized, like a religious radicalism.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, my point is what if you were to give like a paragraph synopsis of your food intake? Actually, can I read your email? I want you to hear this.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
okay.
I just wrote it so quickly.
It is so good. It is like, oh my God, seriously, I'm asking permission to anonymously use this in my book.
Yeah. Totally.
It's been some years since we've talked, and after all this time, I still come back to your videos for the truth. Back when we talked, I was in the depths of binging and starving myself, and you helped me out of it. However, somewhere along the way, multiple times, I became trapped again without awareness in the diet binge cycle. I guess since it had never gotten as bad as it was, I thought I was fine, that I could fix it, and that I couldn't bear thinking I had an issue again, which I totally get, by the way. On a side note, here's me talking. Like, of course, it's that bad. You want to think, especially when recovery feels so good, that you've recovered. To imagine you could get sucked back into it is very deflating. So I could see why you kind of repress the reality that's occurring, because you might have taken pride in the fact that you might have recovered a little bit. You know what I mean? So totally understandable. Okay, back to this email. I guess since I had never gotten as bad as I was, I thought I was fine, that I could still fix it, and that I couldn't bear thinking I had an issue again and put the blame elsewhere. After my dad died, I found myself in diet after diet, not even thinking they were diets until recently. I.e. how to heal emotional type of diets, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I fell into the naturopathic medicine world where I had a new disease every time I went in. I was on anti-inflammatory diets, leaky gut protocols, you know the drill. I felt if I didn't stick to these things, I was harming my body. If I ate a banana, I would be feeding my candida. That right there. When I was reading that, I was just like, oh my God, she is in a dark world of hurt, like bad.
Oh yeah.
Yikes. After coming to my sentence, I dropped off every restriction, even gluten. I do have celiac disease, but I don't even care anymore. I'd rather deal with whatever effects it supposedly causes than have to deal with the stress that comes with it. I totally understand what you just said, right? Basically, the insanity to restrict all of this food is far more harmful than the actual diarrhea.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense?
100%.
Yeah. Like, you'd rather have diarrhea in the moment and not worry about it. Or at least solve or find a balance point. I so get that. So many people, it's like when people are like, oh my God, you need to do something. I'm like, I'd rather cut my arm off than go back into that. I'd rather be 500 pounds. I'd rather have celiac disease, and I'd really actually rather be 500 pounds and have diabetes than to go into that type of psychological hell. You're completely, you can't, there's no life in it. You're lifeless. I have a quote unquote healthy body that is missing it's missing a soul. You know. Oh, I love this part too, because this is just perfect for, I'm talking, you know what? Hey! My dog wants to be right next to me right now, but he also wants to bark at everybody walking by, so I'm so sorry.
I get it. I have animals.
Okay, this is a really big deal to me, and I want to talk about this with you. So the one test my doctors didn't put much emphasis on, which was my cortisol levels. Okay, that to me is so important.
Yeah.
It reads that I'm in literal fight or flight mode all day. Well, duh. Right? Like, of course. Have you watched any of the YouTube videos of me talking about like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Have you heard any of those?
Yes, but this is a while ago. But yes, I haven't listened to any of them recently though.
Kato, get out! Get out! Get out!
This is just a kid.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So this is, to me, is super relevant because your fight or flight response is supposed to be helpful, right?
Right.
It's there for a reason. It's actually something that evolved over thousands and thousands of years to benefit our life, to prevent life from, to prevent us from doing things that are dangerous, essentially from killing ourselves, right? And it's an important mechanism, but why would yours be activated? Like, what is it that's activating your kind of primitive, bear response, if you want to call it that, when you're living in a first world environment, have everything you need? What would be stimulating that response? Which comes from perceptions, by the way.
Right. Taking myself out of allowing myself to have food, so me restricting myself, and then having a fear of food.
A fear of food. So you're in a state of danger. Right? So you could say, well, that behavior, right, with food, wouldn't you agree? That's not maybe necessarily a source of danger so much as it's how you're coping with danger.
Totally, yeah.
So when we think about like how this works, you have to, in order to be in a state of fight or flight, there has to be a sense of threat or danger that you perceive you cannot handle. Okay. If you're in a threat or danger that you feel you can handle, right? What happens to your fear response, to your fight or flight response?
It isn't there.
It's much less. So let's just say you have a gun and there's a bear and you see the bear and you got your gun loaded and you're pointing it at the bear running at you. You're going to be scared, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but imagine you don't have a gun. Or pepper spray. You have imagine the difference between the two. Can't handle it level, right, is high, the higher your fight or flight response is going to be. You could say a fight response means you have some sense of capacity, whereas a flight response is like, I'm better off running. Should I stay here and duke it out or should I run? Right? So you could also say that's just two response to a threat. What about I have to hide permanently forever from something that's coming to get me? Right? Like there's a predator coming to get me. I know it's following me.
Yeah.
That's where you're at.
Totally. Exactly where I'm at. I couldn't have said
Wouldn't you rather just face a bear?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's here. Face it. Let's fight or flight. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Versus there is a perpetual predator lurking all the time. So can you see why if food is the danger, that it is your lurking death is around any corner, that food is going to kill you. Right? But is it really the food or is it your weight or body image that's the lurking threat?
Body image.
I don't know. That's where, the difference between orthorexia and anorexia, right? A lot of orthorexic people, do you know what orthorexia is?
That's the compulsiveness with your body?
Obsessive compulsiveness with, orthorexia is obsessive compulsiveness and narcissism, which means you're superior in your healthiness. It doesn't necessarily have to equate to thinner or leanness. There's a lot of people who are orthorexic who are not lean, actually don't care as much about that as they do the purity of their food. It is like religious supremacy. They think and they judge others for eating bad, sinful.
Okay, I see myself in that sometimes.
Yep, that's
I waver between a couple of them.
Yeah, where I'm
pure. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, and there's a sense of purity and like I'm so healthy and pure and clean and righteous. It's a real self-righteous feeling behind it. That's orthorexia. Anorexia is the same exact thing projected into leanness. How lean my body is. My body. Lean, tight, thinness, leanerness. Right? So anorexics don't necessarily give a shit about the purity of the food so much as they give a shit about how tiny and lean they are. Right? Can you see how, they're different but not really? And some people are both.
Yeah, I was going to say, I definitely fit into both of those.
Yeah, so ortho anorexia. I'm not diagnosing you. I don't have that. I'm nowhere close to being able to do that. But if you look at the research, you could kind of get a sense of where you're at and what you're dealing with. So the problem is, and this is where, saying screw it, where you're at right now is a good place. Right? Probably a year ago, not so much.
Yeah.
Right? Because you were getting a lot out of it. You get a lot out of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but the problem is it comes at such a high cost. I mean, it is amazing the amount of work people put into that type of stuff.
Everything.
And your energy, thought, intelligence is wasted. You don't have any freedom. You're a slave.
No.
right? You're a slave to this, and it's all because you're getting something out of it. You wouldn't do it if you didn't get something out of it.
Right.
So if you want
thinness out of it, a better life, supposedly.
Well, that's the illusion. That's the that's the fantasy. That's the contract with the devil.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to be so healthy. Well, what does that do, really? It's an illusion.
Yeah.
What is that? What is health?
I don't know.
How do you define it for someone who has lost their legs in war?
I don't know. Able to breathe throughout the day.
How do you define that when someone has cancer? How do you define health when someone smokes? You see what I'm saying? It's like, who knows what health is, really? How do we do it? Do we really even know what it is?
No.
Right? So this whole illusion of health is being sold to you by someone who claims they know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
What does that tell you about the person claiming they know what health is?
What'd you say?
What does that tell you about the person who claims to know what health is?
They have probably some issues going on.
You mean they're really self-righteous.
Yeah.
And they think they know everything about the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, imagine thinking you know what health is and then trying to teach everybody to be healthy. Takes a lot of narcissism, right?
Totally.
And that's the essence of orthorexia and anorexia.
Makes sense.
It'd be like saying, I know what spirituality is.
Yeah, yikes.
Right? Okay.
Road.
You have to be the creator of spirituality to know it.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so how do you get out of this? Well, you have to give up what you get out of it, right? You have to surrender the supremacy. The I'm right, you're wrong. The I'm clean, you're dirty.
Right.
You'd have to surrender your identity because what you got to look at is your self-concept. Like, who are you? Can you tell right now you're having a crisis?
Definitely.
Like a who am I crisis? Because if you let these things go, do you even have a sense of who you are?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think the last 2 weeks it's gotten maybe so bad after I let go of all the restrictions because now I'm left with all of it. I mean, a lot more space and a lot more time to do other things or figure out who I am. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm literally like, in a sense, like nobody without this identity of, I don't know, obsessive compulsiveness with food. It's like,
your image.
Shit, I'm left with almost nothing.
That is the truth. There's no joke. It feels like zero. For me, it felt like complete and total, like I won't even exist. I will not exist. There is no me. Like the whole concept of Robin will be blown in the wind, dust in the wind. It's like dying. It feels like you're gonna die, like the death of me. That's kind of what it's saying. Warning, you're gonna die. You won't exist. Non-existence is right there. And our brain wiring is to fight that or run away from it. Run! Avoid!
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep on...
been running.
Right? Isn't that the disorder?
Back into the cycle.
That's the disorder.
What'd you say?
That is the disorder. The running. That's what we call a disorder. Right? That's the, obsessive compulsiveness. All of that is to get rid of that feeling of non-existence that's running towards you and you're running away from it. You're doing whatever you can because it's so scary. Don't you agree?
Yeah, no, this makes a lot of sense. And then I only run so far throughout the day to where I kind of just come back to what's familiar and comfortable, I guess.
Well, it's so much easier just to micromanage your food. That's easy.
Yeah.
Right? Because you get an immediate relief if you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was like me with my exercise. All I got to do is go out and run. Do you know how quick and easy that would be?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could escape all of this in 2 seconds if I just put my shoes on and run. Like, literal running.
Right.
If I go puke up this food, if I just go puke it up, all these feelings will go away.
Mm-hmm. I'm with that. I understand it.
Right? So that would be easy. But is it really when it requires, you're a slave, the obsessive compulsive, the depression, suicidal thoughts, the darkness, the isolation, the lack of joy, the nothingness that you carry inside anyways? Right? There's no truth or realness in your life. It's all just some facade, and anxiety-ridden facade.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it sucks.
Yeah, totally sucks.
I know, I feel for you, dude. I read your email and it was like,
Sucks.
it's painful.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Totally.
so dark. Have you had any suicidal thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I so get it. I really, really understand that. Because it's like, can you imagine imagine just living a whole nother year in that space.
Oh my gosh, I can't even do it.
I know. So what are you going to do? What are your options
Fix
at
it,
this point?
face it.
You got it. It's either that or suicide, right? So that's where I was.
Exactly, yeah.
And to me, suicide felt so relieving. But that's only because I wasn't an adult, right? Like, your brain isn't, you're a little older now. You're 23, right? Don't you agree? It's like, okay, I have a little bit more foresight than I did when I was 18, 19, 20. Yeah. There's a little bit more awareness, too, because you've had some recovery. Nice to meet you. Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so hard. So the only alternative is to face what I call a Grim Reaper.
Uh-huh.
That if you were to describe being followed by the Grim Reaper, wouldn't you agree that's what's been going on here?
Oh, totally, yeah. It's like everywhere you look, everywhere you can't hide from it, no matter how much music or how much surfing I do or how much nature I get, it's like
right there.
It's just there.
And the only way you kind of get...
Or it's there waiting when I come back.
Right. Well, the respite is in the obsessiveness. If I focus on that, if I focus on this, if I count at least I have something that gives me a temporary pause from that darkness that's literally breathing down your neck, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so scary. You know, when people talk about, I'm scared. Oh, it is like, imagine being a predator is following you. It feels like you're in a horror movie and a predator is around every corner. It's horror. It's a horror movie, but you're living in it.
Yeah, it literally feels like that. Yep.
Yeah. That's a fight or flight. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
I know. It's awesome for me because I'm not in it and I see it now for what it is. It's like, holy shit, the brain, that's evolution. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Except for the problem for you is it's attached to food. Mm-hmm. It's attached to your body. No wonder you can't escape. It was attached to food and my body too, for me. Can you see why I felt like I should just kill this body?
Right, yeah.
Because it's attached to the body. But is it really attached to your body, or is it attached to this concept of what the body needs to be for you to be safe from it?
Yeah, the second one's more attached to like a mental configuration.
Of safety.
Yeah.
So if I have that body, I'm safe. If I eat perfectly, and the eating is kind of like symbolic of controlling the body. Don't you agree? Because if you could, let's just say if we get rid of all the eating controls, which is really just your kind of like a mechanism, a defense mechanism. That's what you have to do to maintain this concept of the body, right? Mm-hmm. You only do it because it keeps the body in this concept, right? The means to the end. It's just the means. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay. So but don't you agree the means or all of this insanity with food is why you're miserable?
Mm-hmm.
Are you following me right now?
No, I am. Yeah, I'm trying to just, it's like deep stuff sometimes, like think about it twice.
Well, I'm trying to give you a picture in your mind to see it. It's like, okay, so The only reason I'm having this obsessiveness with food where I have to micromanage everything, I have to control everything, is because the end result is a body image. I think it's going to create an image in my mind of the perfect body, whether it's a perfect look or a perfect concept of health. It's a pure concept of perfection, whether it's perfect. Like I had a fitness concept too. It wasn't just the lean body image, svelte, kind of like leanness and weight. It was also attached to fitness and my resting heart rate and my QR and, your RQ quotient, all that crap. Right? I got a degree in exercise science because I was so fascinated by trying to improve my VO2 max. I mean, that's like orthorexia fitness-wise, right?
I'm the same way with, blood. I'm like, was obsessed with, blood tests and blood levels.
Totally. Same thing.
Going to the doctor all the time, making sure my zonulin levels in my intestines are low enough so I don't have leaky gut.
Oh, God. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's like, I can give lectures on the shit.
Yeah, but do you see how that's like your intellect is hijacked by your survival mechanisms?
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of all that minutia?
Waste of brain space.
It is a complete and total waste. Like, do you really think your intellect can compete with evolution? Send thousands and thousands of years. You really think your intellect can control thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evolution? Guess who's losing right now?
Me.
Your leaky gut. You and your leaky gut.
Yeah.
Maybe leaky gut is supposed to happen. Have you ever thought about that?
Not really.
Well, it's clearly happening for a reason, right?
Yeah.
It's like survival mode. You're supposed to be this way. Why are we questioning it? Under the circumstance, it's supposed to do this. It's a survival mechanism. Obesity. It's supposed to be that way. The body does that for a reason. It took evolution to create that response under certain circumstances. Why are we criticizing it?
Right. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, maybe your leaky gut's supposed to be that way.
Thought about that with the celiac thing because, celiac is just, it's not like you're born and a fact sheet whips out of you and it says you have celiac disease. It's like an interpretation of
a bunch of shit.
System, which probably for me happened from going 3 years, eating basically like raw foods and not touching gluten.
Oh, well, there you go.
Gluten again. My body's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it's like saying someone who's a vegan who reintroduces meat and they don't digest it, that they have an allergy to meat protein.
Right.
Meat protein's bad. Yeah. There's no context. There's no open-mindedness to look at it and be like, oh. And when you think of autoimmune, isn't it a brain thing? Look at how your whole body is inflamed from your perceptions, like maybe your perception. So this is where kind of the whole concept of fear comes from a perceived threat you can't handle. It's not just here's a threat, it's and I can't handle it. It's more than one thing. And it's bad. So judgment. I can't handle it, and not handling it is bad. That's morality, right or wrong. And that morality, if you look at the hierarchies of need, where does morality fit in? So the foundation of your hierarchies of need are food, shelter, or air quality. It's the physiological needs to survive, right?
So morality shouldn't fit in anywhere then.
It does. The second hierarchy of need is environmental safety, right? I have shelter from the elements, shelter from animals. I have protection. That's why we want healthcare and guns. The second hierarchy of need, right?
Okay.
The third hierarchy of need is we're pack animals. So our survival and our ability to get food, water, and shelter, number 1 and number 2 on the hierarchy, goes way up when we're with other people. Right? So our need for people to get access to food, water, and shelter is really important. So can you see where now we're getting some Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah.
Right? If you look up Stockholm Syndrome, it's the third hierarchy of need is controlling food and water and shelter. And if you are abandoned and rejected, you're surely going to die because you cannot provide for yourself. Right?
Gotcha.
Okay, so where do you think morality fits in?
I guess would it be under the third one with the people?
You got it. Your superior, your inferior.
Right.
Your superior, your inferior. That's what morality is. It's definitions that have changed over centuries around what makes a human valiant or shameful. What is worthy of abandonment or inclusion? Right? We are moral animals because of that third hierarchy of need, and how dangerous humans are with each other because of the lower animalistic nature of the ego, right? Which is survival mode. That's your issue. You don't have issues with food. You don't have issues. So these are really primitive, and they stimulate these mechanisms that are highly inflammatory. So if you're afraid of a rejection, abandonment, and disapproval, your entire central nervous system is going to be engaged as if you're in front of a bear.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So imagine how much worse it's going to get when you've attached that to a body image that requires you starve yourself. Remember, food is the foundation, food and air and water, the physiological needs to survive. So imagine your need to feel valued and safe in a tribe requires you starve yourself.
Big conflict.
Huge conflict. So what do you think is going on with your central nervous system? Just from those,
it's going crazy.
Just that, yeah. You have two requirements. Our psychological, well, the third is not a requirement. It's just we've learned over thousands of years through passed down, right? That if you're rejected and abandoned, you're more likely to die, right? So we have hardwired in a dissonance around it. Like fear, like a bear. Don't do it. Oh my God, they're judging you. We have horrible like fight or flight response that says don't do that. It's a horrible feeling.
Right.
That's not a bad thing. You know? So the psychological evolution looks at it as there were probably thousands of years for this to have been hardwired. It's 8,000 years for our genetics to kind of like change or evolve. And so this had to have been going on for tens of thousands of years in these smaller tribes that they found, like packs of 20 to 30 people, where if there was famine and they had to, spread food out, the food was given to people who were contributing, who were, important and loved people in the community. If you were high maintenance, or if you weren't contributing, or if you had issues, or you were seen as a bad person, you would have gotten shunned, and you got to go fend for yourself. Right? I mean, there's so much that's like, oh, and not only that, but you're going to try to blame other people to pull them. If you can get 3 or 4 people to get shunned, you're going to survive a little bit better. That's like co-victimization mentality. I don't know if I'm overdoing it. I don't want to confuse you, but you're in a primitive state of mind. So, they've done so much studies on this, the whole, what's called fight or flight. That was studied by Dr. Cannon over 100 years ago. You know what they found?
Oh, wow. What?
As soon as you perceive threat and there's an inner sense of I can't handle it, these mechanisms turn on. Your digestion slows down. Your salivation is less. Gastric juices don't flow. Peristalsis shuts down.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's instant. And so they found with the emotion of fear and anger, that was like, it shut it down, bam, for hours on end.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's not like an off and on switch. It's like a grade. It's like a volume control, like a dimmer switch. Rage, anger, and fear, turn it off. You're not going to digest well for hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so imagine your fight or flight response is attached to bread. What's going to happen when you eat it? Well, you have a panic attack.
Yeah, I'm going to die.
That's just one thing. So your stomach isn't digesting properly. You're not producing any of those gastric juices anymore. Peristalsis is shut down for hours, so it just sits in your gut. And then on top of that, your blood sugar goes up, not because of food. So they know this is called emotional diabetes. This is, again, 100 years old. Okay, this is early or late 1800s science that still is predominant foundational physiology today. In fear, emotions, and anger. Fear and anger are the hardest, okay? Your body starts producing, through gluconeogenesis, blood sugar. Your blood sugar goes up. It's preparing you to run, fight, flee, hide.
Wow.
So you're naturally going to have higher blood sugar when you're in this state.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so your gut stops working. All of these are awesome. Then your adrenals start firing up because you got to fight or run. So everything is priming you to survive. To physically be able to fight and run and to survive for a long time without food.
Makes sense.
And you've created a concept of lovability and being wanted to these concepts that require you starve and that food is the enemy. Mm-hmm. So combine that with the fact that your gut stops digesting and your blood sugar is naturally higher, but it's occurring while you're with food, because of food, because it conflicts with this concept of healthy and thinness. So right. All of your issues to me are like, well, yeah, of course. Thyroid's going to be working improperly. I mean, after years of this crap, your body is going to stop. You're going to be like 500 pounds.
Oh, yeah. I'm 23 and have like thyroid. I mean, I'm on thyroid med. I mean, everything. Yeah. And I'm realizing it's not. I put so much energy, money, and everything into good doctors and figuring out what's wrong with my anatomy.
You got to be able to tell them, hey, I'm in a severe state of fight or flight, and I am afraid of food as if it is a predator. The food is a predator to me. And you need to make sure this person has got a lot of education in psychology. Because they're going to go, oh, well, she's her own problem. There's nothing we can do to fix that. Right. Her body's working perfectly. Under this, you're just not telling them that there's a reason for this outcome.
Right.
At all. There's a reason my cortisol levels are high and why I don't digest anything. Mm-hmm. And why my blood sugar is super high. So the only thing I can eat is a salad with nothing on it.
Right.
But I can't digest fiber, so... So I'm just going to... Because nothing's digesting. And I can't even taste anything. Because there's literally... I'm in complete and total paralysis.
Yep.
Because I'm healthy. I'm supposed to be healthy.
Yep.
Do you hear how stupid this is?
Yeah, so stupid.
Well, I don't want to judge it. That came across to me. But it is. It's just like, okay, it's primitive, and no one's looking at that. They've micromanaged. They've lost sight of the forest for the bark of one tree at one spot. They've magnified things so much they've lost their shit. They can't see straight.
Right. It's like the research has gotten so like
myopic. Like everybody's wearing magnifying goggles that magnify only one thing.
Yep. Forgetting that they're even in a forest at this point.
Mm-hmm. And you believe it. You believe it all.
Yeah.
So what happens to your brain as you associate with people who think this way? You get to think the same way they do because you're being conditioned by that type of, fight or flight response. They don't even know they're in fight or flight response. They don't even know it.
Right.
Their obsessive compulsiveness around what food is doing is an indication that they're in it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I found to be, I guess, such a big struggle is everyone around me. I mean, now there's parts of me that can see that, holy crap, okay, I'm a little bit kind of walking out of it, but there's so many. It's like the girl I'm traveling with, everybody, my mom, everyone around me is just... Totally.
It's no different than being raised in religious dogma.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just...
Like, let me tell you about the latest, like, fuck off.
You got to be okay being unhealthy.
Yeah.
You do. Whatever that concept is, you have to negotiate with your fear. Even if your fear is super fucked up, you cannot Remove that. So if in your mind, you're going to be whatever unhealth is, that's what you got to work with. In my mind, it was like 500 pounds of morbid obesity and complete slothful, diabetes. Like that was what I was afraid of, right? That's what is my Grim Reaper. That's what my brain had said. If that happens to you, you're going to die. And I was like, well, I'm going to commit suicide anyways. Right? So I'm dying. I have no point to life. The other thing I remember being very consciously aware of was the fact that even if I was super healthy and fit and lean, it was horrible. Life was horrible maintaining it. So I can sit here and promote my lean body and my healthiness and my resting heart rate that's at 48 beats per minute and whatever it is. I'm miserable. And if I were to tell people that, then they wouldn't think I was special.
Right.
They'd see the truth that we can talk about and intellectualize anything we want, but the reality of implementing this type of shit is mental illness. And I want you to consider something. How did people for thousands and thousands of years live without knowing how to live?
Your body is able to take care of itself.
Yeah. Adjust and adapt through thousands of years of volcanoes blowing, horrible plagues because of water.
Yeah. It's almost like the influx of information is kind of deteriorating.
Well, it's
ourselves.
You're losing sight with the fact the body doesn't need you to intellectualize any of it.
Right.
We don't need to know how my food is digesting. It does it. I should just enjoy the fact that it does it. And if I'm going to sit and be afraid of digestion, it's not going to do shit. It doesn't digest. It's not meant to digest under fear. If you're afraid, that means you're supposed to be hiding, not eating. Eating is for people who are not in fight or flight.
Right.
Who feel safe. Can you see why then you'd be so focused in on how to eat safely? I just want to be safe with my food. Not realizing that you're stimulating all these problems.
Right.
Because of fear of food. It's like cannibalizing your own soul in your life. Is you're eating your own life up, so you have nothing with the process of trying to make life by eating it. Soul retching. It's horrible. You're in hell. You're like at the bottom of Dante's Inferno. You're at the bottom where there is no return. How can you escape this from defining this entire life? I mean, you're just starting. Is this what this life is supposed to be about?
Oh my gosh, no.
Right? So can you?
It's a waste of time.
So how are you going to recover if you're not willing to abandon this whole entire thing?
Face it.
You got to abandon it and then just be okay with nothing. I mean, imagine if you could be 2 years old again right now.
Right.
How would that feel?
Freeing. Easy.
Yeah. Would you be obsessed about your weight again? Would you by choice do this again?
Oh my gosh, no way.
Wouldn't you just be like, if people are like, oh my God, you're overweight, you need to lose weight, what would you say? How would you feel about it?
Eat my cake and not give a fuck.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I don't want to think about it. It's not a big deal to me. I can handle being overweight. If that's what the body is, it'll manage itself.
Right.
I want to live life. I want to explore. I don't want to sit here and take my whole life and put it in a box and then never leave. Right? What if you're unhealthy? What if you were born in a body that is inferior?
Adapt.
Right? Maybe you're going to only live until you're 30. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do you want to fixate on it until you die?
No.
What are you going to do with the time you have till you die?
Live it.
Yeah. So what do you think I'm telling you to do right now? Jump off the goddamn cliff. Just jump. Yeah. Go. Go. There's no reason for you to stay here. You can just say, all right, I did this. I experimented with it. It did not end well. I'm done. I'm quitting. I quit dieting. The whole health industry. Do you really want to be identified as a health righteous zealot?
Nope.
And be healthy?
Nope.
Wouldn't you rather be unhealthy and free?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you do. So it's like starting over. It's like saying, all right, I fulfilled this contract. This is the way I visualize it. I'm here. I'm experiencing life. The body that I have, it's the one that was provided for me. It's providing life. I'm conscious. It's kicking ass. What else do I need? Do you need someone else's approval?
No.
So you have to fill that and be like, what if, because our nature is wired in that third hierarchy of need to be, again, fearful of abandonment and rejection. Well, if you're fat and unhealthy, no one's going to love you.
Right.
So that's the fear. That's not the truth, but that's the fear that feels like truth, doesn't it? Okay, all your friends and family and the people, they're all going to be just thinking you're a bad person. They're going to think you are like the devil.
Right.
They're going to
she needs to be educated.
Oh yeah, or you're not trying hard enough, or you're quitting, or you're unhealthy. I don't know how she's allowing that. You have to be okay with that. Talking bad about you, thinking you're inferior, thinking you're a terrible person, whatever they want to think, you have to be okay with that. Because do you think they're really going to understand why?
No way.
No, it's so intense. It's so dark. Don't you wish they'd never find out?
Yeah.
So they'll never understand how bad it is for why you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to honor that for yourself. Like, should you have to live in that for another year so they don't see that how harmful it is or how it's been for you?
Right. Just to let it go. I guess sometimes when I try not to care or think about, like whatever, just do your thing, it's like kind of, maybe it's just hard because it's kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
To be playing with, but I think my ego just sometimes comes back in as like, I don't want them to think I'm dumb.
Okay, so that's the third hierarchy of need. That's the problem. That's why you're doing it. So you have to be okay with like, well, so what if, which one's worse? Them thinking you're dumb or that dark hell of horror?
Oh my gosh, the dark hole is way worse.
Yeah, right? So go through the dumbness. They can think what they want. It's like coming out of the closet. Here's the truth for me. It's the right thing for me. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for them, but I'm the only one that's aware of how dark this got for me, the suicidal thoughts. I'm the only one that knows the truth, so I'm the only one that can make the right decision. True. They can think what they want. Do you really need their approval? Do you have to explain it all to them to make sure that they're okay that you made this decision for you?
No.
Yeah, just let them think what they want and forgive them for just not knowing, just ignorant. They're just ignorant. And there's nothing wrong with ignorance. Mm-hmm. We're all ignorant.
It's true.
I know. So let's just assume when people make decisions that to you are dumb, they're doing the right thing based on what they think is the right thing to do. Just like you in your food religious zealotry. People who do that, they think they're doing the right thing. And that's what they should do. Maybe they don't go through the dark hell of despair and horror.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right? Those are special people. They're like, whoa. Let them, maybe they're superior beings. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You, me, people that suffer from this, we're not. I couldn't handle it, right? I almost killed myself in the body I'm in because I couldn't do it anymore. So it was over. Right. I quit. So abort mission. And exactly. And I had to realize, okay, trial and error. I can either kill this body because it's all or nothing, or I can kill the identity, kill the concept of me and start over as if I'm two. As an adult, in an adult body. Thank God I don't have to go through junior high all over again.
Yeah, right?
Totally. It's like, now I'm an adult. I don't have to adhere to my parents' needs. Holy shit! This is going to be fun. Mm-hmm. Right? You're an adult. You know how to function as an adult. You know the systems that we're in. Why can't just adapt to them? But now keep like relearn, who am I? What's the truth? Just present the truth, and the humility of just being like, it is what it is. It's inferior, it's inadequate. Just think of how many ways you suck right now. You're totally inadequate right now.
There's a lot.
I know. Me too. So many people aren't going to like me because of, I cuss. Whatever. I don't care. This is the truth of me, the essence of what I bring to the table. If you can't stand the superficiality of the way I talk, then you need to find someone who maybe talks the way you like.
Right.
That type of person. Everybody should have that freedom. Right? So if someone's demanding that you behave a certain way so that they'll like you, holy shit, man, you have battered wife syndrome.
Yes.
Battered friend syndrome, battered parents syndrome, whatever syndrome it is, right? Battered thin supremacy syndrome, battered health righteous syndrome, right? Again, that's taking your third hierarchy of need, the need for love and belonging, and holding hostage food and water and shelter. You can't have any of this unless you do what we say. And you have to be healthy and thin. And if you're not allowed to do anything. You can't go anywhere.
Prison.
You're in prison, yeah. But you're doing it to yourself.
Prison. Yeah.
Because you're afraid of people's disapproval. So if you want freedom, what do you have to accept?
Being not like
disapproval.
Accepted.
You have to be you have to be okay with that. You got to come out of the closet and just be like, what didn't work for me. I sucked. I failed. I quit. I'm done. I will never. You can do it. You don't have to proselytize anti. You don't have to be anti-leaky gut syndrome protocols. You can just say it. There's a point of diminishing returns for people who come into it with with survival mode. There might be people that don't go into it in survival mode and leave it not being in survival mode. There might be those people might exist. Again, they're superior.
Yeah.
They're special. They can have it. Good for them. Give them the altar to stand on, right?
Yeah.
You're amazing. Okay. I'd rather have diabetes, personally.
Yeah, me as well.
Right? Injecting insulin? I think that's nothing.
Seriously.
Oh, I know. Why are we fearing that?
I don't know.
No shit.
Be fearful of it.
Right? Well, they were derogatory to it, right? So that's where that third hierarchy of need is like, it's the morality. You're lazy. You don't even care about your health. Now it's inflammatory. It's pretty amazing, don't you think, when you really open your mind to this could be like snap. It could be over as quickly as you're willing to quit. It's like leaving the cult.
Yeah.
Just think of yourself in a cult. It's a traveling cult mentality. You can identify people who are in that cult because they talk about the same thing, same shit. Right?
Right.
They use the same language. You could have a ton of conversation with people like that, but you can also say, yeah, oh my gosh, I did all that and I ended up crazy. Good for whoever goes into that and they don't become obsessive compulsive, or that's not all they think about. But for me, it was really dangerous. I'd rather, have physical problems. I say that a lot to just people I'm around. Like, oh my God, you're so in shape. How do you get your arms that way? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I'd rather be like 50 pounds overweight if I could get my spine to stop hurting. Yeah. And they look at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, I've got slipped disc, bulging disc. I would exchange my svelte arms I'd gain 200 pounds if it meant my back would feel better. They literally are like shocked. I'm like, well, it's true. Where you're not conforming to that type of brainwashing. You're saying something that doesn't align, right? It gives them a little bit of like, huh? Hold on a second. Aren't we supposed to risk everything for body image? I'd rather have diarrhea.
Yeah.
Every day, all day long.
And have to deal with
Yeah. If I end up with cancer, my mom died of brain cancer, my sister, I might have Lynch syndrome. You know what? That's the way I go. I'm going to take every part of the life I have and I'm going to make it awesome. Why sit around and take my life and all of the consciousness I have to explore and to enjoy and then turn it towards myself into self-preservation around fear of dying?
Right.
Like, I'm going to die. So are you. Mm-hmm. Why do we have to fixate on that?
It's a waste of time.
It is for me. It is for me. I've come to that place, right? Yeah. I'm like, I have all this conscious space and awareness and openness. I want to use it for every moment I have. And in the end, if I end up with diabetes, lose my eyesight, got to cut my feet off. Well, that means my body's naturally in that state, right? Doesn't mean I don't go get insulin or I don't get my eyes checked, but I'm not going to exchange my free will and the essence of life for control and protection from death.
Right. That makes sense.
Oh gosh, it's amazing, really. Mm-hmm. And that's the lesson you learned, and you learned it early. What, you're 23?
Yeah.
Put this behind you. Just, certify. I fulfilled the contract of hell. Mm-hmm. I would rather be fat. It's like signing a contract saying I'd rather be fat, I'd rather have diabetes, I'd rather die of colon cancer, I'd rather die than to be psychologically ill and suicidal and have nothing, soulless. I have no soul. I'd rather have my soul and live out a life in a body that's perfectly fine.
Right.
It's an illusion that there's something wrong. And if there is something wrong, tend to it, but don't negotiate your soul. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where your boundaries were lacking. You negotiated your soul, your third hierarchy of need. You negotiated for your sense of value and worth and lovability with a body image. So you surrender the body image. I don't want it. I don't care. I want the freedom of the child that's within, that existed when I was a kid. I want that back.
Right.
I want my freedom to be. Get that back. All you got to do is return what you get out of it. I don't want promotion. I don't want the attention. I don't want people to care. I don't want people to like me because I'm quote unquote their concept of health. That's like saying people like me because I'm the same religion as them. Mm-hmm. I don't want that type of liking. I want them to like me because I'm authentic. I'm authentic in my humanness, and they connect with me as a human to human level versus a brainwash to brainwash level.
Right.
So you'd have to be willing to be rejected, abandoned, disapproved of, mocked, made fun of by people who want you to be the brainwashed idea of what they think you should be. You have to be okay, even if it's your own parents.
Right.
Okay, I have to go. I have another client right now, but let's